So recently, I came down with a very severe case of out of ideas-itis. It is a common but rather serious illness, and the only cure is waiting for it to pass. Side effects of this illness include the crappy video you're about to watch. Now, believe it or not, there isn't actually that much lore or information about Paper in Hollow Knight, almost like the developers had more important things to do. Well, I suppose we better just get started on the concrete facts we have, or should I say, facts. One sentence from Lem. When you give him your 5th Wanderer's Journal, he says something along the lines of, "Stone better for writing, paper get all wet and bad." Okay, that's not actually what he says, I'm paraphrasing, but what he actually says gives us some interesting information. Like, paper was only used in the City of Tears, and only late in the City of Tears' life. We also know from this statement that the paper was made from spider silk, and most of it is illegible due to just being far too moist for human consumption, or bug consumption I guess. This means that Lem can only really gather information through non-paper things, but he also can't really make any more paper because he needs spider silk, which presumably comes from Deep Nest, and since there aren't any spiders elsewhere in Hollow Nest. Plus there's like no trees anywhere in Hollow Knight, unless you count the White Lady, but somehow I don't think her hair would make very good paper. Actually, there's nothing like trees in Hollow Nest. There's like maybe some foliage and green path, but there's never really anything that looks like it's got or is made out of woods. Wait, what about these platforms in the Colosseum with fools and Zote's weapon? Is also just made out of shell wood, and that's like actual canon, not just speculation. Well, I suppose the wood could have come from outside Hollow Nest. Well, it is quite unlikely since, as far as we know, most of outside Hollow Nest is a wasteland. But Zote does come from outside Hollow Nest, and the Colosseum gets lots of visitors from outside Hollow Nest. What's more, most people we see that use paper come from outside Hollow Nest, like the almighty and godly Cornifer, and he just seems to throw it around anywhere he pleases, which suggests he has lots of paper, but this doesn't really add up, because if paper only really comes from outside Hollow Nest, it must be somewhat of a valued item. I probably shouldn't continue along this line of thought, but it does add to my Cornifer theory just a little. Well, I made yet another logical error in Hollow Knight, very visible to the public. Oh well, back to the actual lore of the paper. Wow, it's almost like I'm padding out the video. So, it says that spider silk was only used to create paper later in the City of Tears' life, and I think it was the City of Tears since you can't find paper anywhere else in Hollow Nest. Oh, maybe apart from Weaver's Den, but I'm still not sure, I need to check that. Since spider silk from presumably Deep Nest was the thing making paper, it probably means that City of Tears started to use it around the same time that Hera and the Pale King made an allegiance, because Hera was the leader of Deep Nest, and up until then Deep Nest Hollow Nest relations were complicated, shall we say? We have to assume that Deep Nest only opened up trade due to the allegiance between Hera and the Pale King. It also explains why Lem's only information on the Hollow Knight was from the statue of the Hollow Knight, because all of the information about the Hollow Knight would have been on paper, because by the time the Pale King made a deal with Hera, it was just part of the big Hollow Knight plan thing. Go watch Mossbag if you want actual lore. Now on to why the paper is actually ruins. And it's not that I'm going to blame it on Hollow Nest's inefficient plumbing, but I'm blaming it on Hollow Nest's inefficient plumbing. The Blue Lake above the City of Tears is what's causing the constant rain, and I think if the Pale King had just installed some plumbing beneath the Blue Lake, the City of Tears wouldn't have been so wet and moist. Plus, the paper would have been preserved and we'd have way more lore. Anyways, it's not like the Pale King didn't know about the giant lake above his capital. He built a tram over it. But, yeah, that is why paper moist. Too moist for consumption. I think that's everything we have to talk about in relation to paper and Hollow Knight. I mean, wow, would you look at that, there isn't actually that much to talk about. It's almost like Team Cherry had more important aspects of the lore to focus their time and effort on. I mean, it's not like everything we know about Paper and Hollow Knight comes from one throwaway line and the rest is speculation based on speculation. Hopefully after this, my out of ideas itis passes, because if it doesn't, my channel may just go inactive for like a couple of months.